Welcome back to the Ruby Tablet. I'm your host, Ariel, and this is our journey through the essays of the Temple of Set. Last time, we explored the pre-Socratic philosophers, the first thinkers who dared to ask what the universe was made of, who shifted from myth to reason, and who laid the foundation for everything that followed. We met Thales, Heraclitus, Parmenides, and Pythagoras. We saw the birth of philosophy itself. Today we move forward to one of the most influential figures in the entire history of Western thought, Plato. This is the essay titled The Philosophy of Plato and written by Michael Aquino. Plato is a towering figure, and his ideas have shaped Western civilization for over 2,000 years. So let's get into it. This essay begins by setting the scene. We're in the 4th century BC Athens, the golden age of Greek culture. And what a scene it is. Athens was strongly rational and humanistic. The human mind and the human body were admired and exalted. This was the age of the Parthenon, of the great plays of Sophocles and Euripides, of the philosophical schools that would define Western thought. The essay points out a fascinating contrast. The Greeks admired perfection of the body. Their statues are almost always of idealized figures and physiques. Think of the Discobolus, the discus thrower, with his perfectly proportioned body in motion. Think of the Venus de Milo, with her idealized feminine form. The Greeks weren't interested in realism for its own sake. They were interested in perfection, in capturing the ideal. Contrast this with Roman sculpture. Roman sculpture was much more realistic. It portrayed actual rather than ideal features. The Romans showed wrinkles, double chins, balding heads. They were interested in the individual, in the particular. The Greeks were interested in the universal, in the ideal, and this distinction runs through their entire culture. The debate at the heart of this golden age was between the Pythagoreans and Platonists on one side, and the materialists and sophists on the other. The question was, are we just matter and behavior? Or is that all there is to us? Is there something more? Is there a higher reality, a cosmic order that we can understand and align ourselves with? Plato, as we will see, was firmly on the side of the idealists. He believed there was something more. Let's take a moment to understand Plato himself. He was born in Athens around 427 BC into an aristocratic family. His real name was Aristocles, but he was nicknamed Plato, which means broad, probably because of his broad shoulders or his broad forehead. He was a student of Socrates, the man who turned philosophy from the cosmos to the human soul. Socrates didn't write anything down. He just walked around Athens, asking questions, challenging assumptions, and irritating the powerful. And in 399 BC, the Athenian government executed him for impiety and corrupting the youth. Plato was devastated. He saw the death of his teacher as proof that democracy, at least as it was practiced in Athens, was deeply flawed. It was a mob rule. It was a system that could kill the best man in the city. After Socrates' death, Plato traveled widely. He went to Egypt, to Sicily, and possibly to other parts of the Mediterranean. He absorbed ideas from the pre-Socratics, from the Pythagoreans, and from the Egyptian wisdom traditions. Then he returned to Athens and founded the Academy, the first university in the Western world. This was a school where students could study philosophy, mathematics, and the sciences. It was the center of intellectual life in Greece for over 900 years, until it was finally abolished by the Emperor Justinian in 529 because he was afraid it was too unchristian. We'll come back to that. Plato wrote dialogues, philosophical conversations featuring Socrates as the main character. These are some of the most important texts in the history of philosophy. In them, Plato explores questions about justice, beauty, knowledge, the nature of reality, and the soul. He created a grand, comprehensive philosophical system that would shape Western thought for over 2,000 years. Let's start with the core of Plato's philosophy, the theory of forms. Imagine you see a beautiful horse, you see a beautiful painting, you see a beautiful sunset. What do they have in common? They're all beautiful. But what is beauty itself? Is it the horse? No, because the horse is just a horse. Is it the painting? No, because the painting is just a painting. Is it the sunset? No, because the sunset is just a sunset. Plato's answer is that there is a form of beauty, an ideal, perfect, eternal beauty that exists beyond the physical world. The horse, the painting, and the sunset are just imperfect copies of that form. They participate in the form of beauty, but they are not beauty itself. This is the theory of forms. The forms are the true reality. They are eternal, unchanging, and perfect. They are the objects of true knowledge. The physical world we see around us is just a shadow, a copy, a pale imitation of the real world. It is temporal, changing, and imperfect. It is the object of opinion, not knowledge. Now, the essay makes a very important point here. Plato's gods are defined as in Egypt. They are not directly concerned with human affairs. They are not concerned with the forms, with the first principles, which are the ordering mechanisms of the universe and everything in it. This is a key difference from the Mesopotamian and even the Homeric gods. The Egyptian neteru were also concerned with the natural principles of the universe. Plato's gods are even more abstract. They are the principles themselves. They are the forms. For Plato, the universe is a highly complex, logically intelligible machine. It can be understood through philosophy, but philosophy is reserved for elite, higher intellects. Not everyone can understand the forms. Not everyone can see the truth. This is a deeply elitist philosophy. Let's talk about what that means. Plato is described as an elitist who believed philosophy should be reserved to the elite, higher intellects. The essay defends this as benevolent aristocracy, aimed at creating a happy and harmonious society. Is it possible to have a just society that is also elitist? Can we reconcile Plato's vision with modern democratic values, or is his philosophy fundamentally incompatible with the idea that all people are created equally? This is one of the most contentious aspects of Plato's philosophy, and it's where his critics have the strongest case. Plato's ideal state is deeply elitist. Only a few people, the philosophers, have the wisdom to rule. Everyone else is just following orders. The guardians don't have private property. They don't have families. They're essentially living in a barracks. The producers are just workers. They don't have a say in how the city is run. Plato's defense is that this is benevolent. The philosophers have knowledge. They understand the forms. They know what is truly good. So they should rule. It's in everyone's interest to be ruled by the wise. The alternative is chaos, tyranny, and injustice. But is this really benevolent? Let's think about it. The philosophers rule for the good of the whole. But who defines what is good? The philosophers do, and they're the ones in power. There's no check on their power. There's no way for the people to remove them. It's a dictatorship, even if it's a benevolent one. And what about the people? They're being told what to do. They're being denied a say in their own lives. Is that justice? Is that happiness? Plato's vision seems to be based on the idea that some people are inherently more capable than others. Some are born to rule. Some are born to be ruled. This is a deeply aristocratic view of human nature. Now, the essay defends Plato against the charge of totalitarianism. It says his critics are erroneous and that his vision is benevolent. But is that a convincing defense? It seems to me that the essay is trying to rehabilitate Plato, to make him acceptable to modern sensibilities. But Plato was not a modern liberal. He didn't believe in individual rights. He didn't believe in democracy. He believed in the rule of the wise. There's a tension here. Can we admire Plato's philosophy while rejecting his politics? Can we separate the theory of forms from his work in the Republic? I think we can. The forms are a profound insight. The allegory of the cave is a powerful metaphor, but the Republic is a problematic vision. The Temple of Set also has an elitist dimension. It's an initiatory organization. It's not for everyone. The left-hand path is for those who are ready for it. But the temple's elitism is different from Plato's. Plato's elitism is political. It's about who rules. The temple's elitism is spiritual. It's about who is ready for self-deification. The temple isn't saying that only Setians should rule society. It's saying that only Setians are ready for the black flame. Plato illustrates his idea of elitism with one of the most famous allegories in history, the allegory of the cave. Imagine a group of people who have been chained inside a dark cave since birth. They're facing a wall and they can't move their heads. Behind them, there's a fire, and between the fire and the prisoners, there's a path along which people carry objects. The prisoners can only see the shadows of these objects cast on the wall in front of them. They think the shadows are reality. That's all they've ever known. But one day, a prisoner is freed. He's turned around and he sees the fire and he sees the objects. He's confused. His eyes hurt. The shadows were easier to see, easier to understand. But gradually, he realizes that the objects are more real than the shadows. Then he's dragged out of the cave into the sunlight. At first, he's blinded. The sun is too bright. But gradually, his eyes adjust and he sees the real world. He sees the trees, the mountains, the sky, and finally, he sees the sun itself, the source of all light and life. He goes back into the cave to free the other prisoners, but they've been in the dark for so long that they don't believe him. They think he's gone crazy. They might even kill him if he tries to force them out. This allegory is a perfect summary of Plato's philosophy. The cave is the physical world of our senses. The shadows are the things we see and experience. The freed prisoner is the philosopher, the one who seeks truth. The sun is the form of the good, the highest of all the forms, the source of all being and knowledge. The prisoners who don't believe him are the people who are content with their ignorance, who are comfortable in their chains. But let's take note here. The freed prisoner does go back. He has a responsibility to help the others. This is Plato's vision of the philosopher-king, the one who has seen the truth and has a duty to rule, to guide society towards the light. The essay breaks down Plato's stratification of thought. There's aikasia, which is primitive emotion. This is the lowest level. It's the world of shadows. Then there's pistis, which is ordinary active or reactive thinking. This is the world of belief, of common sense. Then there's dianoia, which is precise, logical, enlightened thought. This is the world of mathematics and science. And finally, there's gnosis, which is intuition and apprehension of the agathon, the good. This is the highest level. This is the vision of the forms. Plato's allegory of the cave describes people who mistake shadows for reality. In our modern world, with social media, algorithms, and echo chambers, are we more or less like the prisoners in the cave? Who are the philosophers today who are trying to lead us out? And who are the people who would rather stay chained to the wall? The allegory of the cave is one of the most powerful metaphors in philosophy. It describes people chained in a cave, facing a wall, watching shadows. They think the shadows are reality. They don't know that there's a fire behind them, a path, objects, and a world outside. They're prisoners, but they don't even know that they're prisoners. In our modern world, the cave looks a lot like the internet. We're all staring at screens. We're watching shadows, social media feeds, news headlines, viral videos. We think we're informed. We think we're connected, but we're seeing a curated version of reality. Algorithms are feeding us what we want to see. We're in echo chambers. We're not seeing the full picture. At least the prisoners in the cave had an excuse. They were physically chained. They couldn't turn around. We don't have that excuse. We can turn around anytime we want to. We can seek out different perspectives. We can question our assumptions. But most of us don't. We prefer the comfort of the cave. The shadows are easier to look at. The world is too bright, too confusing. So who are the philosophers today? Who is trying to lead us out? There's no clear answer. In Plato's time, the philosophers were a small group of intellectuals. They were the only ones who had the training to understand the forms. Today we have many people who might fit the role. Scientists, investigative journalists, independent thinkers, truth seekers. But the thing is, they're all competing for attention. They're all shouting into the noise. And who would rather stay chained? That's most of us. We don't want to be challenged. We don't want to have our assumptions questioned. We want to be comfortable. We want to be right. We want to be told that we're right. We're like the prisoners who won't believe the freed man. We think he's crazy. We might even kill him. The essay says that the freed prisoner does go back. He has a responsibility to help the others. Even if the others don't want to be helped, they resist. This is a profound insight. It's not just about ignorance. It's about willful ignorance. It's about choosing the shadows over the light. So how does the soul fit into this picture? For Plato, the soul is immortal. It existed before we were born, and it will continue after we die. Before birth, the soul existed in the realm of the forms. It saw truth directly. It was pure and it was perfect. But then it was born into a physical body and it forgot everything it knew. This is the doctrine of recollection. Life is a process of remembering what we already knew. We're not learning new things. We're just remembering. This is why we can reason, why we understand abstract concepts. The soul already knows them. It just needs to be reminded. The essay says that Plato's philosophy concerning immortality can be found in his work The Phaedo, specifically discussions of the recollective basis of knowledge and the cyclical theory of immortality. His work The Phaedo is the dialogue that describes Socrates' last hours, his death, and his arguments for the immortality of the soul. It's a beautiful and moving text. Plato considered the soul, or psyche, as the repository of the entire personality or character. He didn't think you could purify the psyche with rituals or restrictions. That's more of a Pythagorean or an Orphic idea. He thought you had to develop the soul through the exercise of its faculties, through reason, through philosophy, through the pursuit of truth. So when the essay says Plato believed we should develop the psyche through exercise of its faculties rather than through rituals or restrictions, the Temple of Set is on the other side. They emphasize the will and the left-hand path. Which approach is more effective for self-development? Plato's rational self-cultivation or the Setian emphasis on will and magic? Can they be combined or are they fundamentally opposed? This is where we get to the heart of the difference between Plato and the Temple of Set. Plato believed in the supremacy of reason. The goal of life is to understand the forms. You achieve that by exercising your rational faculties. You study philosophy. You think deeply. You question everything. You align your soul with the objective order of reality. The Temple of Set believes in the supremacy of the will. The goal of life is self-deification. You achieve that by asserting your will. You practice magic. You transform reality. You become a god. Reason is a tool, but it's not the goal. The will is the goal. These are fundamentally different visions. For Plato, the universe is an objective order. You adapt to it. You understand it. You align with it. For the Temple of Set, the universe is a field of possibilities. You shape it. You command it. You create it. Can they be combined? Maybe. You could use Plato's rational methods to understand the universe, and then you could use the Setian will to transform it. You would understand the principles, and then you would apply them. It would be a synthesis of knowledge and power. There's still a tension. If the universe is an objective order, then transforming it is problematic. You might be violating the order. You might be acting against the divine. If the universe is a field of possibilities, then understanding it is less important than shaping it. You might not need to understand it. You just need to will it. The essay says that Plato's approach was to develop the soul through exercise of its faculties. This is like self-discipline. You train your mind, you become rational, you become virtuous, you become harmonious. The Temple of Set approach is also about development. It's about becoming more than human. It's about becoming a god. But it's a different kind of development. It's about power, not just understanding. In my view, both approaches are valuable. Reason is a powerful tool. The will is a powerful tool. The best approach is to use both. Understand the universe and then transform it. Use your reason to guide your will. Use your will to enact your reason. Plato famously compares the soul to a charioteer driving a chariot pulled by two horses. One horse is noble and obedient. It represents reason, the rational part of the soul. The other horse is wild and unruly. It represents desire, the appetitive part of the soul. The charioteer's job is to control the wild horse, to keep it in check, and to guide both horses towards the truth. But there are actually three parts to the soul: reason, which seeks truth and wisdom; spirit, which experiences anger, courage, and ambition; and appetite, which craves food, drink, sex, and physical pleasure. A just soul is one where reason rules. Spirit supports reason, and appetite is controlled. When reason is in charge, the soul is harmonious. When appetite is in charge, the soul is chaotic and unjust. This is the psychological basis for Plato's ethics. Virtue is a matter of harmony within the soul. Vice is a matter of disharmony. The goal is to achieve balance, to become a fully integrated person, and this is also the basis for his political philosophy. The essay says that the state is the psyche magnified. Plato's work, called The Republic, is not just a book about politics. It's a book about the soul. The city is a metaphor for the soul. Just as the soul has three parts, the city has three classes. The rational part corresponds to the rulers, the philosophers. The spirited part corresponds to the soldiers, the guardians. The appetitive part corresponds to the producers, the workers. A just city, like a just soul, is one where each part does its own job. The respective virtues are temperance, courage, and wisdom. The producers have temperance, the soldiers have courage, and the rulers have wisdom. When each class does its job and doesn't meddle in the affairs of the others, the city is just. When the soul is harmoniously ordered, the person is just. But the Republic is also a deeply radical work. Plato argues that the rulers, the philosophers, must be trained in philosophy and mathematics. They must understand the forms. They must be able to see the truth. They must be the ones who rule. This is his famous idea of the philosopher-king. The guardians, the soldiers, are trained in physical fitness and courage. They protect the city from external threats. They are loyal and brave. The producers, the workers, provide the goods and services the city needs. They are the farmers, the craftsmen, the merchants. But Plato's ideal city is also a deeply repressive one. The guardians don't have private property. They don't have families. They live in common, and this is to prevent them from being corrupted by selfishness and greed. Children are raised by the state, not by their parents. This is to ensure that the best children are raised to be rulers and guardians, regardless of their parentage. This is a vision of a completely rational, completely ordered society. It's a vision that has inspired both utopian thinkers and totalitarian regimes. The essay highlights a key debate in the Republic. Thrasymachus, a sophist, suggests that justice is merely the interest of the stronger. In other words, might makes right. The powerful make the laws to benefit themselves. Justice is just the name they give to their own advantage. Socrates responds that the rulers may not know their own interests. They might make mistakes. They might think they're acting in their own interest, but they're actually acting against it. This is a subtle argument. Socrates is saying that even the powerful are not immune to error. There is an objective standard of justice that even the rulers must abide by. Then Glausson suggests that justice is the maximization of individual desires while avoiding suffering at others' hands. It's like a social contract. We agree not to harm each other because we're afraid of being harmed. Justice is a compromise. It's the best we can do in a world of selfish individuals. Socrates refutes this as well by prescribing the ideal state. He argues that it is more natural for a man to be just than rather than unjust if his soul is healthy and each part is doing its proper work. Justice is not just a compromise, it's a state of harmony. It's what the soul naturally desires. It's what leads to happiness. It's the path to a good life. The essay presents the debate between Thrasymachus, who says justice is just the interest of the stronger, and Socrates. Thrasymachus's position sounds very much like a modern realist or Machiavellian view of politics. Is Thrasymachus right? Is justice just whatever the powerful say it is? Or is there an objective standard of justice that transcends power? Thrasymachus's challenge is one of the most important moments in the history of philosophy. He's a sophist. He's a relativist. He says that justice is just the interest of the stronger. The powerful make the laws to benefit themselves. They call it justice, but it's just their will. This is a deeply cynical view. It's also very modern. It's the view of realpolitik. It's the view of many political scientists. It's the view of anyone who thinks that politics is just about power. Thrasymachus is saying that there's no objective justice. There's just power. The strong do what they can. The weak will suffer what they must. Socrates responds. He says that the rulers may not know their own interests. They might make mistakes. They might think they're acting in their own interest, but they're actually acting against it. So justice isn't just the interest of the stronger. It's something else. It's something objective. But is Socrates right? Let's think about it. Is there an objective standard of justice? Can we say that some actions are just and some are unjust, regardless of who is in power? I think we can. Most of us believe that slavery is unjust, even if the powerful say it's just. Most of us believe that genocide is unjust, even if the powerful say it's just. We have a sense that some things are wrong. But where does that sense come from? Is it innate? Is it learned? Is it cultural? Is it a reflection of the forms? Plato would say it's a reflection of the forms. Justice is a form. It exists independently of us. We can understand it through reason. The powerful might claim to be just, but if they're not aligned with the form of justice, they're wrong. This is a powerful idea. It means that we can criticize the powerful. We can say, you're unjust. We don't have to accept their claims. We can appeal to a higher standard. This is the foundation of human rights. This is the foundation of civil disobedience. This is the foundation of resistance to tyranny. But is the form of justice real, or is it just a human invention? This is the important question. If justice is just a human convention, then Thrasymachus is right. The powerful create justice. If justice is something objective, then Socrates is right. There's a standard that transcends power. I think we need to believe in objective justice. Without it, we have no basis for resistance. We have no basis for hope. We're just at the mercy of the powerful. So, on this one, I side with Socrates. Justice is real. It's something we can understand. It's something we can strive for. It's something we can use to judge the actions of others. It was important to Plato that virtue be raised to a level of rationality. It was not enough for people to be unconsciously or instinctively virtuous. They must taste the knowledge of good and evil, and then knowingly choose the good. This is a crucial point. For Plato, ignorance is the root of evil. If you truly understand what is good, you will do it. No one chooses to be bad. They simply don't know what good is. They're confused. They're misled by appearances. They think they're choosing something good, but they're actually choosing something bad. This is why education is so important. This is why the philosopher-king must rule. The philosopher has the knowledge. The philosopher understands the forms. The philosopher knows what is truly good. And with that knowledge, the philosopher can guide society. This is an optimistic philosophy. It's a philosophy that believes in the power of reason. It's a philosophy that believes that we can become better, that we can create a just society if we just use our minds. It's a philosophy of hope. The essay also discusses Plato's later work called The Laws. The Republic was a vision of an ideal city, a utopia. The Laws is a more practical work. It's a blueprint for a real city, a city that could actually exist. In The Laws, Plato argues that the wise man must be subjected to laws which are not as competent as he is. Why? So that unwise men will continue to trust him. If the wise man is above the law, the unwise will be suspicious. They won't understand him. They'll think he's a threat. So the wise man must submit to the law, even though he is wiser than the law, in order to maintain the trust of the people. This is a fascinating and somewhat tragic vision. The philosopher must hide his wisdom. He must pretend to be like everyone else. He must submit to the very laws he knows are imperfect. Virtue in the laws is the proper posture towards pleasure and pain reached by reason. It's about balancing pleasure and pain, about making rational choices. And if the reasoning is adopted by the city, the result is law. Law is the embodiment of reason. It's the voice of the city. The rule of laws is an imitation of divine rule. Hence, honor must be paid to the gods by the populace. But, and this is crucial, there must be resistance to law changing. Laws should not be changed lightly, but they can be changed with caution by wise men, by philosophers. It's a conservative vision, but not a static one. Now let's connect this to the Temple of Set. The essay is from the Temple of Set, after all. Why is Plato's philosophy important to them? The Temple of Set, like Plato, believes in a higher reality. It believes in the existence of the psyche, the soul, as something real and eternal. It believes in the importance of knowledge, of understanding the true nature of things. Plato's theory of forms provides a philosophical basis for the idea of a reality beyond the physical world. It provides a language for talking about the soul, about immortality, about the pursuit of wisdom. There are also differences, however. Plato's forms are objective. They exist independently of us. They're out there in a transcendent realm. For the Temple of Set, the subjective universe is just as important as the objective one. The psyche, the individual consciousness, is not just a reflection of the forms. It's a creative power in its own right. Plato believed in the supremacy of reason. For him, the goal was to align the soul with the objective order of the forms. The Temple of Set, while valuing reason, also emphasizes the will. The goal is not just to understand the universe, but to transform it, to assert one's individual will. This is the left-hand path, the path of self-deification. And Plato was an elitist, but his elitism was directed towards an ideal, happy, and harmonious society. The Temple of Set is also elitist, but its elitism is directed towards the individual. The goal is the development of the individual, the self-realization of the psyche. Plato was an adherent of teleology. Teleology is the doctrine that final causes of phenomena exist. It's the idea that purpose and design are a part of or are apparent in nature. It's the idea that phenomena are not only guided by mechanical forces, but also move towards certain goals of self-realization. The opposite of teleology is mechanism. Mechanism describes phenomena in terms of prior causes instead of their presumed destination or fulfillment. Modern science is mechanistic. It explains things by looking at what came before, not at what they're trying to become. For Plato, the universe has a purpose. It's moving towards something. It's striving for something. This is a deeply important idea. For Plato, the universe is not just a machine. It's a living thing. It's a purposeful thing. It's a thing with meaning. And the goal of human life is to align ourselves with that purpose. It's to understand the design and to participate in it. It's to become what we are meant to become. The essay says that Plato, in the Laws, defends belief in the gods because of the doctrine of the immortal psyche and the evident order in the universe. The order of the universe suggests design. The design suggests a designer. The soul suggests something beyond the physical. This is a rational argument for belief in the divine. It's not based on faith, it's based on reason. The essay contrasts Plato's teleology, the idea that the universe moves towards goals of self-realization, with mechanism, the modern scientific view that explains phenomena in terms of prior causes. Does modern science's rejection of teleology impoverish our understanding of the universe? Is there room for purpose and meaning in a mechanistic world, or does mechanism inevitably lead to nihilism? This is one of the deepest questions in philosophy. Teleology is the idea that the universe has a purpose. Things are moving towards goals. There's a direction. There's meaning. Mechanism is the idea that the universe is just a machine. It runs according to laws. There's no purpose. There's just cause and effect. Plato was a teleologist. He believed that the universe was designed. It was ordered. It was moving towards self-realization. This is why he believed in the forms. The forms are the goals. They're the perfection towards which everything is moving. The universe is a process of becoming. Modern science is mechanistic. It explains phenomena in terms of prior causes. Why does the ball fall? Because gravity pulls it. Why did that cell divide? Because of chemical reactions. There's no purpose, there's just physics. This has been incredibly successful. We've used mechanism to understand the universe. We've used it to develop technology. But has this rejection of teleology impoverished us? I think it has. Mechanism is good for understanding how things work. It's not good for understanding why things matter. It gives us explanations. It doesn't give us meaning. We can explain the physical world. We can't explain why we're here. We can't explain what we should do. This is where the crisis of modern nihilism comes from. If there's no purpose to the universe, then what's the point of anything? We're just a collection of atoms. Our lives have no meaning. Our choices don't matter. The universe is just a machine. But there's another way to look at it. Maybe the universe doesn't have a purpose, but we can create our own purpose. Maybe meaning is something we project onto a purposeless cosmos. We can decide what matters. We can choose our own goals. We can live with meaning, even if the universe is indifferent. The Temple of Set takes this third approach. The universe is a field of possibilities. We can shape it. We can create our own reality. We can assert our will. We can become gods. This is not teleology in the Platonic sense. It's not about aligning ourselves with an objective purpose. It's about creating our own purpose. And this is a fascinating synthesis. The Temple of Set accepts the mechanistic universe. It doesn't deny science, but it also affirms the will. It says that the universe may be purposeless, but we are not. We are the beings of will. We can impose our purpose on the universe. Plato also had a theory of political decay. He believed that the ideal state would eventually decline. There were several stages of decline. First, the ideal state becomes a timocracy. Timocracy is rule according to the soldierly ideals or power. It's a state run by the military. The love of honor replaces the love of wisdom. Then, timocracy becomes an oligarchy. Oligarchy is rule based upon control by wealth. The rich take over. They make laws to benefit themselves. The love of money replaces the love of honor. Then, oligarchy becomes a democracy. Democracy is a state governed by the passions of the masses. The poor rise up. They take over. They make laws to benefit themselves. But democracy is chaotic. It's a state of constant change. It's a state where everyone wants what they want and no one cares about the common good. And finally, democracy becomes a tyranny. Tyranny is manipulation by self-interested autocrats. A tyrant arises. He promises to restore order. He takes control. He rules for his own benefit, and the cycle begins again. This is Plato's pessimistic view of history. He saw democracy as a stage of decline. He saw it as a chaotic mob rule. He saw it as a system that would inevitably lead to tyranny. And he did have a point. He had seen democracy kill Socrates. He had seen it lead to the downfall of Athens. So Plato's description of the inevitable decay of the ideal state went like this: timocracy, oligarchy, democracy, and finally tyranny. Is this pattern playing out in modern societies? Are we currently in one of these stages of decline? If so, which one? Can any political system avoid this cycle of decay? Plato's political cycle is pessimistic for sure. The ideal state, ruled by philosopher-kings, is perfect, but it inevitably decays. The pattern he described looks familiar, doesn't it? We can see these stages playing out in our own history. The Roman Republic went from a kind of aristocratic rule to military rule to rule by the wealthy to the chaos of the late Republic to tyranny. The French Revolution went from monarchy to democracy to the Reign of Terror to Napoleon. Even the United States has arguably gone from a kind of aristocratic rule to a more democratic system to a time of intense polarization, and some people fear it's on the verge of tyranny. So are we in a stage of decline? It's a matter of debate. Some people think we're in the democracy stage. We're governed by the passions of the masses. The media is polarized. The politicians are pandering. The common good is being ignored. Others think we're on the verge of tyranny. A strong man is rising. He promises to restore order. He's manipulating the system. He wants to rule for his own benefit. But I think it's more complicated than that. Plato's cycle assumes that each stage is a distinct phase. In reality, these things overlap. We can have elements of democracy and oligarchy at the same time. We can have elements of timocracy and tyranny. It's a messy process. Can we avoid the cycle? Plato thought it was inevitable. The ideal state is unstable. It can't maintain itself. It decays. But maybe we can do better. Maybe we can learn from Plato's insight. Maybe we can build institutions that are less prone to decay. Maybe we can educate citizens to value the common good. Maybe we can design a system that is resilient. But I'm skeptical. Human nature is what it is. We're selfish. We're short-sighted. We're greedy. We're power-hungry. The cycle of decay might be a permanent feature of human history. We might be doomed to repeat it. The Platonic Academy existed for 900 years. That's an incredible run. It was a center of learning, a place where philosophers could gather, a place where ideas could be debated and developed. But in 529, the Emperor Justinian abolished it. Why? He was afraid that it was too unchristian. Christianity had become the dominant religion of the Roman Empire, and the Academy, with its pagan philosophy, with its ideas about the soul and the forms, was a threat. It was a competitor. It had to be suppressed. And then the Platonic dialogues were lost to Europe until the 15th century. They were preserved in the Islamic world. They were translated into Arabic, and they were eventually reintroduced to Europe, sparking the Renaissance, the rediscovery of classical learning. This is a tragic but also inspiring story. The ideas of Plato, the ideas of philosophy were suppressed. They were lost, but they survived. They were preserved, and they were rediscovered. They came back to life. What does it mean that the West lost Plato for nearly 1,000 years? What ideas, what possibilities were lost with him? And what does his rediscovery tell us about the importance of preserving and transmitting knowledge? The loss of Plato is one of the great tragedies of Western history. The Academy was the center of philosophical learning for 900 years. It was a place where people gathered to discuss the best ideas, to understand the universe, and then it was shut down. The Emperor Justinian, a Christian, was afraid that the Academy was too unchristian. He wanted to suppress it. He wanted to create an entirely Christian empire. So the Academy was closed. The philosophers were dispersed. The dialogues were lost. For nearly 1,000 years, Europe had no direct access to Plato. His ideas were preserved only in fragments, in summaries, in the writings of the church fathers. but the full richness of his philosophy was gone. What was lost? Plato's theory of forms, his concept of the soul, his vision of the ideal state, his exploration of love and beauty, his profound insights into the nature of reality. All of this was lost, and with it a certain way of thinking, a way of thinking that was rational, idealistic, and mystical, a way of thinking that saw the universe as ordered, meaningful, and knowable. But his ideas did survive. They were preserved in the Islamic world. The Arabs translated Plato's works into Arabic. They studied them, they debated them, they incorporated them into their own philosophies. And in the 15th century, during the Renaissance, the dialogues of Plato were reintroduced to Europe. They sparked a revolution. They sparked the Renaissance. They sparked the Enlightenment. They sparked the modern world. This tells us something important about the importance of preserving and transmitting knowledge. Ideas can be suppressed, they can be lost, but they can also be rediscovered, they can be revived, they can be reanimated. This is why libraries are so important. This is why education is so important. This is why freedom of thought is so important. We must protect the intellectual heritage of humanity. And this is also why the Temple of Set is so interested in Plato. They see him as a link in the chain of wisdom that began in Egypt, was preserved in Greece, and continues to this present day. They see themselves as guardians of that chain. They see themselves as heirs to that tradition. The essay then makes a fascinating point. Critics of Plato attack him as a totalitarian oligarch. They see his political philosophy as oppressive. They see his ideal state as a kind of fascism, and they are also bewildered by the mysticism which permeates his writings. The essay argues that such mysticism is intelligible to those familiar with the Egyptian and Pythagorean concepts. And that's exactly right. Plato is not a pure rationalist. He's a mystic. He believes in the existence of a higher reality. He believes in the immortality of the soul. He believes in the power of the mind to grasp the divine. This is the Egyptian influence. The Egyptians believed that the universe was alive, that it was filled with the wills of the neteru. The Pythagoreans believed that the universe was a mathematical harmony, a symphony of numbers. Plato synthesized these ideas. He created a philosophy that was both rational and mystical. He created a philosophy that was both Greek and Egyptian. This is why the Temple of Set finds Plato so important. He is a link in the chain. He is a bridge between the ancient wisdom of Egypt and the modern philosophy of the West. The essay states that Plato's gods are defined as in Egypt, and that the mysticism in his writings is intelligible to those familiar with Egyptian and Pythagorean concepts. What specific Egyptian ideas are reflected in Plato's philosophy, and how might Plato have transformed those ideas into something distinctly Greek? Is Plato essentially an Egyptian philosopher writing in Greek, or did he fundamentally alter the Egyptian worldview? This is such a foundational question because it gets to the heart of what this entire podcast is about. The Temple of Set claims a lineage that runs from ancient Egypt through Plato and into the present. So we need to ask, is that lineage real? Is Plato genuinely Egyptian in his thinking, or is the temple projecting its own ideas onto a Greek philosopher? Let's start with the similarities. The Egyptian worldview, as we discussed in episode 2, was characterized by a belief in neteru, conscious natural principles that actively controlled the universe. The Egyptians didn't see a distinction between reality and appearance. A dream was just as real as a waking experience. The universe was alive, intelligent, and ordered by divine principles. Plato's theory of forms seems to echo this. The forms are eternal, unchanging principles that structure reality. They're not personal gods in the way we usually think of lowercase g gods. They are divine principles. They're the ordering mechanisms of the universe. And just as the Egyptians believed that images of the neteru could actually manifest the neteru themselves, Plato believed that the physical world participates in the forms. It's not just a copy, it's an actual participation in something higher. But here's where Plato transforms the Egyptian worldview. The Egyptians saw the neteru as actively involved in the world. They intervened. They responded to prayers. They had personalities. Plato's gods are much more abstract. They're not directly concerned with human affairs. They're concerned with the forms, with the principles of order. They're like cosmic mathematicians, not personal deities. And this is where the Pythagorean influence comes in. Pythagoras was initiated into the Egyptian priesthood, but he turned Egyptian ideas into mathematical ones. He saw the universe as a symphony of numbers. Plato took that and ran with it. The forms are mathematically intelligible. The universe is a machine. It's a logically intelligible machine. The Egyptians didn't see the universe as a machine. They saw it as alive, as a living being with wills and desires. So is Plato an Egyptian philosopher writing in Greek? No, he's a Greek philosopher deeply influenced by Egyptian ideas. He took the Egyptian sense of a divinely ordered universe and transformed it through the Greek love of reason and logic. He made it abstract. He made it rational. He made it his own. And this is why the Temple of Set can claim Plato as an ancestor. The core idea that there is a higher reality, that the soul is immortal, that we can align ourselves with the divine order comes from Egypt. Plato gave it a rational form. The temple takes it a step further, adding the will and magic, but the lineage is definitely real. So what is the enduring relevance of Plato? Why should we care about a philosopher who lived 2,400 years ago? Plato asks the fundamental questions. What is reality? What is knowledge? What is justice? What is the good life? These are questions that never go away. They are questions that every generation must answer for itself. Plato also gives us a vision of a higher reality. He gives us a reason to look beyond the material world. He gives us a hope that there is more to life than just eating, sleeping, and working. He gives us a sense of wonder, a sense of the mystery of existence. And Plato gives us a language for talking about these things. He invented the vocabulary of philosophy. He created the concepts that we still use today. He is the father of Western philosophy. For the Temple of Set, Plato is a crucial figure. His philosophy provides the intellectual framework for their beliefs. His theory of forms provides a basis for the idea of a higher reality. His concept of the soul provides a basis for the idea of the immortal psyche. His emphasis on reason provides a basis for the intellectual rigor of the temple. But the Temple of Set also departs from Plato in significant ways. It emphasizes the will, the creative power of the individual. It emphasizes the importance of self-deification, the goal of becoming a god. It emphasizes the left-hand path, the path of independence and self-assertion. Plato believed in the supremacy of reason. The Temple of Set believes in the supremacy of the will. Plato believed in the objective reality of the forms. The Temple of Set believes in the subjective reality of the psyche. Plato believed in the ultimate harmony of the cosmos. The Temple of Set believes in the ultimate freedom of the individual. This is a fascinating synthesis. It's a synthesis of Eastern and Western ideas, of ancient and modern wisdom, of rationalism and mysticism, of idealism and individualism. The essay doesn't explicitly say this, but we can see Plato's philosophy as a kind of left-hand path philosophy, a path of self-realization and ascent to the divine. But Plato's path is through reason, not through will or magic. Does Plato belong on the left-hand path, or is he more aligned with the right-hand path of submission to a higher order? Where should we place him? This is a crucial question for the Temple of Set, in particular. The left-hand path is the path of self-deification. It's the path of asserting your own will. It's the path of becoming a god. The right-hand path is the path of submission to a higher power. It's the path of surrendering the ego. It's the path of merging with the divine. So where does Plato fit? On one hand, he believes in the forms. The forms are the higher reality. The goal of the soul is to understand them, to align with them, to become like them. This sounds like the right-hand path almost. It's about a submission to a higher order. It's about surrendering the individual will to the divine. But on the other hand, Plato believes in the immortality of the soul. He believes that the soul can achieve union with the divine. He believes that the soul can become like the gods. This sounds more like the left-hand path. It's about self-realization. It's about ascent. It's about becoming divine. So which is it? I think Plato is a bridge. He's a bridge between the right-hand path and the left-hand path. He believes in a higher order, but he also believes in the potential of the individual to understand and participate in that order. He believes in submission, but also in ascent. The Temple of Set takes Plato in a more left-hand direction. They emphasize the will. They emphasize magic. They emphasize self-deification. They see Plato's philosophy as a foundation for their own path. They see reason as a tool, but not the goal. The goal is the will. Is this a legitimate reading of Plato? It could be a bit of a stretch. Plato's philosophy is rationalistic. He believes in the supremacy of reason. He doesn't emphasize the will, he emphasizes the mind. The Temple of Set is reading their own ideas into Plato. They're claiming him as an ancestor, but he might have been a reluctant ancestor. However, the Temple of Set isn't alone in this. Many traditions have claimed Plato as an ancestor. The Neoplatonists, the Hermeticists, the Renaissance philosophers. Plato is a rich source of ideas. He can be interpreted in many ways. The Temple of Set has chosen to interpret him in a way that fits their own philosophy, and it is legitimate. It's a matter of interpretation. The left-hand path is the path of self-deification. It's the path of asserting your own will. It's the path of becoming a god. Plato's philosophy can be seen as a left-hand path philosophy. He believes that we can become like the divine. He believes that we can achieve a state of perfection. He believes that we can understand the forms, that we can align ourselves with the good, that we can become wise. But Plato's path is through reason. It's through philosophy. It's through the exercise of the mind. It's not through magic. It's not through will. It's not through assertion. It's through understanding. The Temple of Set adds a new dimension. It adds the will. It adds magic. It adds the idea that we can actively shape reality. Plato believed that we should align ourselves with the reality that exists. The Temple of Set believes that we should create our own reality. This is the difference, but it's also a continuity. The goal is the same. The goal is self-realization. The goal is becoming like the divine. The path is different, but the destination is the same. Plato's forms have been interpreted in many ways. One interpretation is that the forms are archetypes. They are the original patterns. They are the models for everything in the physical world. The physical world is a copy of the archetypal world. This is an idea that has resonated with many traditions. The Egyptians believed in the existence of a spiritual world that was the source of the physical world. The Pythagoreans believed in the existence of a mathematical world that was the source of the physical world. The Temple of Set believes in the existence of a psychic world that is the source of the physical world. The forms are the building blocks of reality. They are the principles that structure the universe. They are the intelligible patterns that make the universe understandable. Plato's genius was to see that the universe is not random. It is structured. It is patterned. It is ordered. And that structure, that pattern, that order is accessible to the human mind. Plato's influence on religion is immense. His ideas were incorporated into Christianity. The Christian God is often seen as a kind of form of the good. The Christian soul is seen as a kind of immortal psyche. The Christian heaven is seen as a kind of realm of the forms. This is a controversial idea. Many Christians would deny that they are Platonists. They would say that their religion is based on revelation, not on philosophy, but the influence is undeniable. The language of Christianity, its concepts of God, soul, and heaven are deeply Platonic. The same is true of Islam and Judaism. The great medieval philosophers, like Maimonides and Avicenna, were deeply influenced by Plato. They used his ideas to articulate their own religious beliefs. Plato's philosophy is a bridge. It's a bridge between paganism and Christianity. It's a bridge between East and West. It's a bridge between reason and faith. It's a bridge that has been crossed by countless people over the centuries. And Plato's influence continues to this day. His ideas are still debated in universities. His works are still read by students. His philosophy is still a source of inspiration. In a world that is increasingly materialistic, Plato's philosophy offers a counterpoint. It offers a vision of a higher reality. It offers a purpose for human existence. It offers a reason to strive for something beyond ourselves. In a world that is increasingly fragmented, Plato's philosophy offers a vision of unity. It offers a vision of the cosmos as a unified whole. It offers a vision of the soul as a unified whole. It offers a vision of society as a unified whole. In a world that is increasingly cynical, Plato's philosophy offers a vision of hope. It offers a vision of the possibility of knowledge. It offers a vision of the possibility of justice. It offers a vision of the possibility of a good life. But we must also acknowledge the critics of Plato. He has been criticized for his political philosophy. His ideal state is seen by many as totalitarian. It suppresses individual freedom. It creates a rigid class system. It puts too much power in the hands of the few. He has also been criticized for his epistemology. His theory of forms is seen as too abstract. It devalues the physical world. It makes knowledge seem like something that is only accessible to a few. He has also been criticized for his ethics. His emphasis on reason is seen as neglecting the emotions. His emphasis on harmony is seen as neglecting conflict. His emphasis on the ideal is seen as neglecting the real. These are valid criticisms. Plato was not perfect. His philosophy is not flawless. But it is also a philosophy of immense depth and power. It is a philosophy that has inspired countless people. It is a philosophy that has shaped the course of Western civilization. The essay defends Plato by saying that the critics who attack him as a totalitarian oligarch are erroneous, and that his mysticism is only bewildering to those who are unfamiliar with Egyptian and Pythagorean concepts. Is this a good defense of Plato? Is his vision of the ideal state genuinely benevolent, or does it contain the seeds of totalitarianism? And does the mystical dimension of his philosophy redeem him? This is the ultimate question about Plato. Is he a benevolent philosopher-king or a totalitarian oligarch? The essay defends him. It says the critics are wrong. It says Plato's vision is benevolent. It says his mysticism is understandable. But is that true? Let's look at the evidence. Plato's ideal state is elitist. It's hierarchical. It's a repressive. The rulers have absolute power. The people have no rights. The guardians have no families. The producers have no say. This looks like totalitarianism. It looks like a system designed to control people, not to liberate them. But Plato would say that's missing the point. He would say that the goal is justice. He would say that justice is harmony. He would say that harmony requires each part to do its own job. He would say that the people are happy because they're living in a just society. They might not have individual rights, but they have something better. They have a good life. Is that convincing? I'm not sure. It seems like a rationalization for oppression. Plato is assuming that he knows what's good for people. He's assuming that he can create a perfect society. He's assuming that he has the authority to impose his vision on others. This is the arrogance of the philosopher. This is the arrogance of the intellectual. It's the belief that you know better than everyone else. But Plato also has the mystical dimension. He believes in the forms. He believes in the soul. He believes in the divine. This redeems him in my eyes. It shows that he's not just a cynical power monger. He's actually seeking something higher. He's seeking truth. He's seeking wisdom. He's seeking the good. So I have mixed feelings. I admire Plato's mysticism. I admire his quest for truth. I admire his vision of the good. But I do reject his politics. I reject his elitism. I reject his authoritarianism. I think we can separate the two. We can learn from his philosophy while rejecting his politics. This is what the Temple of Set does. They take Plato's philosophy. They use it as a foundation, but they add their own ideas. They add the will. They add magic. They add self-deification. They create a synthesis that is more individualistic, more empowering, more modern. So what have we learned in this episode? We've explored Plato's life and context. We've explored his theory of forms. We've explored his allegory of the cave. We've explored his concept of the soul. We've explored his political philosophy. And we've seen how these ideas connect to the philosophy of the Temple of Set. We've seen that Plato is a towering figure. He is one of the most important philosophers in history. His ideas have shaped our world. His questions are still our questions. His answers are still our answers. But our journey through classical Greek philosophy is not over. There's one more major figure to discuss. Plato had a student, a brilliant man who would challenge his teacher's ideas and create his own system. His name is Aristotle. In our next episode, we will explore Aristotle's philosophy. We'll look at his logic, his ethics, his physics, and his metaphysics, and we'll see how he, like Plato, was a foundational figure in the history of Western thought. Let's take a final look at the Temple of Set's relationship with Plato. The Temple of Set is a modern organization, founded in 1975, but it sees itself as the heir to an ancient tradition. That tradition begins in Egypt, with the worship of Set, the god of the desert, the god of the storm, the god of the outsider. The Egyptians believed that Set was a real being, a conscious entity. He was not just a symbol, he was not just a myth, he was an actual presence. And he had a message for humanity, a gift, the black flame, the gift of Set, the questioning intellect, the power to become like the gods. Plato's philosophy is a key part of that tradition. He was initiated into the Egyptian mysteries. He learned their wisdom, he brought it back to Greece, and he transformed it into a philosophy that could be understood by the rational mind. Plato's theory of forms is a philosophical expression of the Egyptian belief in the divine order. Plato's concept of the soul is a philosophical expression of the Egyptian belief in the immortal psyche. Plato's concept of the good is a philosophical expression of the Egyptian belief in the neteru. The Temple of Set takes these ideas and develops them. They add the will, they add magic, they add the idea of self-deification. They create a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern philosophy. They create a path for the individual to become like the divine. So when we study Plato, we are studying the roots of the Temple of Set. We are studying the philosophical foundation of the left-hand path. We are studying the ideas that have shaped the tradition that continues to this day. We've now covered ancient Egyptian philosophy, Mesopotamian philosophy, pre-Socratic Greek philosophy, and Plato. Looking back over these 4 episodes, what themes or ideas connect them? Is there a unified narrative arc, or are these separate traditions that only occasionally overlap? And how does the Temple of Set use these traditions to build its own philosophy? This is the meta question. It ties the entire podcast series together. We've been exploring the roots of Western philosophy. We've gone from Egypt to Mesopotamia to Greece, and now we're at Plato. So what's the arc? What's the story? I think there are 3 main themes that connect everything. First, there's the belief in a higher reality. The Egyptians had the neteru. The Mesopotamians had their gods. The pre-Socratics had the logos. Plato had the forms. All of these traditions believe that there's something beyond the physical world. There's a higher reality. There's a divine order. Second, there's the belief in the soul. The Egyptians believed in the immortal psyche. The Mesopotamians believed in a dim underworld. The pre-Socratics had the idea of reincarnation. Plato had the idea of the immortal soul. All of these traditions believe that there's something about us that survives death. There's something about us that is eternal. Third, there's the quest for knowledge. The Egyptians sought wisdom. The Mesopotamians sought obedience to the gods. The pre-Socratics sought to understand the universe. Plato sought to understand the forms. All of these traditions believe that knowledge is important. It's the path to truth. It's the path to salvation. So there is an arc. It's the arc of the soul's journey. It's the arc of the search for wisdom. It's the arc of the desire for transcendence. This is a deeply human story. It's the story of people trying to understand their place in the cosmos. It's the story of people trying to become better. It's the story of people trying to become divine. And the Temple of Set is part of this story. They see themselves as heirs to this tradition. They've taken the Egyptian idea of the neteru and transformed it into the idea of Set as a real entity. They've taken the pre-Socratic idea of the psyche and transformed it into the idea of the immortal soul. They've taken Plato's idea of the forms and transformed it into the idea of the black flame. They're continuing the arc. They're continuing the quest. They're continuing the journey. Thank you for listening to this podcast inspired by the Temple of Set. I hope you've enjoyed this exploration of Plato's philosophy. I hope you've learned something. I hope you've been inspired. Plato believed that philosophy is the highest calling. He believed that the pursuit of wisdom is the most important thing we can do. He believed that the unexamined life is not worth living. I hope this podcast, The Ruby Tablet, is a contribution to that pursuit. I hope it helps you examine your own life. I hope it helps you think about the big questions. I hope it helps you become a better human being. Again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time for more philosophy, spirituality, and magic on the left hand path.